The air in the cabin was thick with the recycled scent of stale coffee and nervous anticipation. Flight 347 from New York to San Francisco was already delayed by an hour, and the collective mood was as turbulent as the skies outside. I was squeezed into an economy seat, nursing a lukewarm soda and trying to ignore the incessant chatter around me. That's when she boarded. She was a woman in her late 40s, dressed in a sensible, if slightly worn, business suit. Her hair, pulled back in a neat bun, had a few stray strands that seemed to mirror the chaos of the boarding process. What struck me immediately was her phone call. Even before she'd found her seat, she was speaking loudly, almost shouting, into her phone, her voice carrying across the entire economy cabin. "No, I told you. The new servers need to be online by 3 p.m. EST. No exceptions. I don't care about the power surge in Data Center B. Find a workaround." A ripple of annoyance spread through the passengers. Whispers and eye rolls became the universal language. Someone beside me muttered, "Does she think this is her private office?" A young man across the aisle actually snickered, loud enough for her to hear. She just ignored them, her face a mask of intense concentration as she continued her impassioned conversation. She argued with someone named Mark about network protocols, then with Susan about client deliverables. Each sentence was a rapid-fire volley of technical jargon, delivered with an urgency that seemed completely out of place on a cramped airplane. As the boarding process dragged on, her call became a background symphony of demands and deadlines. People started openly staring. A flight attendant politely reminded her to switch off her phone for takeoff, and she merely nodded, still mid-sentence, promising to call back as soon as we land, even if it's on the tarmac. The general consensus, unspoken but palpable, was that this woman was a prime example of everything wrong with the modern world: self-important, inconsiderate, and utterly oblivious to her surroundings. I admit, even I found myself thinking, "Good riddance. Can't wait for her to hang up." Little did any of us know her persistent calls were about to become our only hope. We were about an hour into the flight, somewhere over the vast, monotonous plains of the Midwest, the landscape below a patchwork of faint greens and browns. The cabin, which had just begun to settle into a rhythm of hushed conversations and the soft glow of reading lights, was suddenly jolted. It wasn't violent, not like hitting a wall, but more of a prolonged, deep shudder, as if the plane had suddenly developed an uncontrollable tremor. The sound was distinct, a low guttural groan that seemed to emanate from the very core of the aircraft, followed by a series of alarming metallic screeches. Then, with a sickening pop, the cabin lights flickered, wildly, dancing erratically before plunging us into near darkness for a terrifying moment. A collective, audible gasp swept through the passengers, followed by a suffocating silence as the lights eventually sputtered back on, dimmer and with a disconcerting, yellowish tint. The immediate sensation was one of being suspended in a fragile metal tube, miles above the earth, utterly at the mercy of whatever was happening outside. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The pilot's voice, usually so calm and reassuring, now crackled over the intercom, tinged with an undeniable edge of raw urgency. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've experienced a significant technical issue. We are currently working to resolve it and will keep you updated. Please remain in your seats with your seat belts fastened." The words "significant technical issue" hung heavy in the air, a thinly veiled euphemism for something far more dire. The plane's engines, which had been a steady, comforting hum, now seemed to fluctuate wildly, their rhythm broken by unsettling coughs and sputters. It felt less like a sophisticated machine and more like a dying beast. Soon after, the air conditioning began to sputter erratically, then failed completely, and the cabin grew noticeably warmer, the air quickly becoming stale and heavy. A distinct, acrid smell, like burning wires and hot metal, started to permeate, the air stinging my nostrils and lodging itself in my throat. It was the smell of impending disaster. Panic, a silent but potent predator, began to stalk the aisles. Children, sensing the shift in the adults' demeanor, started to cry, their wails cutting through the tense silence. Adults exchanged wide-eyed, terrified glances, their faces pale under the dim, flickering lights. One woman near me began to hyperventilate, clutching her chest. Suddenly, a flight attendant rushed past, her face a mask of stark white fear, her brisk pace almost a run as she hurried towards the cockpit. Minutes later, the pilot's voice returned, this time stripped of any pretense of calm. His words were clipped, urgent, and final. Emergency. Repeat. This is an emergency. We have a rapidly decreasing cabin pressure and an engine malfunction. We are initiating an emergency descent and seeking an immediate diversion to the nearest suitable airport. The words hit us like a physical blow. Emergency. Engine malfunction. Rapidly decreasing cabin pressure. The very air felt thinner, harder to breathe. Oxygen masks dropped from the overhead compartments with a clatter, swinging wildly like macabre pendulums. Instructions blared over the intercom, but the rising tide of fear and the shrill whine of the cabin alarms were deafening. People fumbled, with their masks, their hands shaking uncontrollably, some struggling to secure the elastic bands around their heads. I could feel the plane losing altitude rapidly, the familiar pressure building painfully in my ears, a sure sign of our plummeting descent. Amidst the growing chaos, amidst the shouts, the cries, and the suffocating fear, I saw her, the woman from economy. Dr. Evelyn Reed. She was already on her phone, somehow defying the rules, defying the static, defying the overwhelming alarm bells that screamed through the cabin. Her voice, though strained, was remarkably steady, cutting through the pandemonium with an almost unnerving clarity. Listen to me, Mark. We have a catastrophic engine failure and rapid depressurization on Flight 347. I need you to access the real-time weather and air traffic control data for my current position right now. I need landing strip options for a heavy-lift aircraft, and I need contingency plans for a partial runway collapse. And alert emergency services in, give me a moment, yes, Nevada, near the coordinates I'm sending. The sheer audacity of her call, the technical precision of her demands, the almost chilling calmness in her voice amidst the growing pandemonium was astounding. No one was laughing now. No one was annoyed. We were all just terrified, our faces pressed into oxygen masks, struggling to breathe, and she was the only one doing anything other than succumbing to the terror. She was fighting, and in that terrifying moment, the woman everyone had dismissed became the only beacon of hope in the rapidly darkening sky. The plane continued its terrifying descent. Through the small window, I could see the ground rushing up to meet us, and expanse of desolate desert stretching to the horizon under a pale, unforgiving sky. The acrid smell of burning wires intensified, a choking presence in the rapidly warming cabin. The overhead compartments shuddered with each lurch, and the rhythmic clang of the rattling emergency equipment was a terrifying soundtrack to our plummet. The flight attendants, bless their souls, were doing their absolute best to maintain a semblance of order, their faces etched with a fear that mirrored our own. Yet their voices remained remarkably steady as they repeated emergency procedures. And then a new voice cut through the blare of the alarms and the frantic cries of the passengers, calm and authoritative, yet distinctly not the pilot's. It was her, the woman from economy. This is Dr. Evelyn Reed on Flight 347. Her voice resonated. From the intercom, clear and surprisingly steady, despite the obvious chaos around her. I have been in communication with ground control. We have a narrow window for landing. The pilot is doing an incredible job, but the runway at our diversion airport, that runway, is compromised due to unforeseen weather damage. My team on the ground is now guiding air traffic control to a secondary, less trafficked private airfield with a longer, more stable runway. They are clearing the area, deploying rapid response emergency units, and have emergency services en route. We are being guided by the precise coordinates my team is relaying to the cockpit right now. A profound hush fell over the cabin, a silence heavier than any I'd ever experienced. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the woman everyone had scoffed at for her annoying phone calls, was now our undeniable lifeline. Her voice continued strong and clear, guiding the crew with startling precision. She gave updates on the ground efforts, confirming the clearance of the alternative runway and the immediate deployment of medical and fire teams. She even offered highly technical suggestions for managing the damaged engine to the co-pilot through the intercom system, her words a blend of engineering expertise and urgent practical advice. It turned out she was a renowned aerospace engineer and a leading disaster management expert on her way to a crucial industry conference. Her company had developed cutting-edge real-time data analysis systems, and in that moment, she was literally using her own team, her own proprietary technology, to save all our lives. The irony was palpable, the relief even more so. The landing was nothing short of miraculous. It was still rough, a jarring, teeth-rattling experience as the plane bounced and shuddered, but somehow, against all odds, the wheels found the tarmac. We skidded to a halt on a dusty remote airstrip, the only structure in sight, a small hangar in the distance. Even before the engines fully spooled down, a swarm of emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, rushed towards us, lights flashing in the afternoon sun. The collective sigh of relief that washed over us was a tangible thing, a tidal wave of gratitude that broke the tension that had held us captive. People wept openly, some cheered, others simply sat in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the sheer fact of being alive. As we disembarked, shaken but miraculously unharmed, I saw her, Dr. Reed. She stood calmly on the tarmac, still speaking into her phone, still directing, still problem-solving, her back to the rising dust of our emergency. Landing? She was giving instructions to the first responders, her voice just as calm and collected as it had been while we plummeted through the sky. She wasn't seeking recognition. She was simply doing her job, her extraordinary skills applied to the most desperate of circumstances. No one was laughing at the woman in economy anymore. Instead, there were tears of gratitude, whispered thank yous, and a profound sense of awe. Her annoying phone calls, the very thing that had drawn so much derision and judgment, had been our salvation. She hadn't been oblivious to us. She had been deeply engaged in a different, more critical reality, one that intersected with ours in the most dramatic and life-saving way possible. It was a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones we initially dismiss, the ones who are simply doing what they do best, even when everyone else is busy judging. We all learned that day that true value often lies in unexpected places, and sometimes the loudest voice isn't always the most obnoxious, but the one that truly matters. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desolate airstrip, Dr. Evelyn Reed walked past me, a quiet, unassuming figure, a testament to the fact that competence, dedication, and a strong network can literally save lives.